It's a problem shared by cities big and little, dealing with the mentally ill. Every day across the country, more than 30,000 of them are in jail. It's a problem the cop on the beat doesn't need.
We've seen a big increase in the number of mentally ill that we deal with.
Sergeant Jeff Church tries to get help for street people who are mentally ill before they get in trouble with the law.
How old are you now, Jay?
I'm over 24,000 years old.
But usually they don't want help.
Oh, I don't need that.
And often they get in trouble and find themselves in B wing of the Reno jail.
Most of those guys in there are, they just need help. They aren't really criminals. They do minor, petty little things, and they get sentenced to jail because there's nowhere else for them to go.
Because it comes from Satan's people.
Mark Corrigan, who died of a brain tumor shortly after we met him, was a regular at the Reno jail.
And you've been in and out of jail how many times, would you say?
About 24 times, because when I don't have my money, I go get some.
Do you have any sense that you're mentally ill?
No, I hear voices.
This time he was in for trespassing. Two of his neighbors ate meals they didn't pay for. Another urinated in public. Minor crimes. In a recent study by the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, 69% of jails reported seeing more or far more inmates with serious mental illnesses than a decade ago. The reason? Deinstitutionalization, the emptying of most public mental hospitals in the 1960s and 70s, and the failure of state and local governments to provide follow-up services. Instead, cities like Reno provide jail cells. Some of the mentally ill do wind up here at one of the state's 2 mental hospitals, if they appear to be dangerous to themselves or others. But once here, they have the right to refuse medication, and often do. Then they may become too hard to handle and are sent right back to jail.
I wasn't a criminal, but I was treated like one. I hadn't hurt anybody. I hadn't committed no crime.
Danny Carroll suffers from manic depression. He lives in Kentucky, one of 45 states where the mentally ill are routinely jailed without charges.
They put me in there nude. I didn't have my glasses. My teeth got broke.
The National Alliance study gave Kentucky its worst state award, citing a 2-class system. Mentally ill people with money go to private hospitals. The poor go to jail first. Under consideration, a change in Kentucky's law so people like Danny Carroll would be evaluated in a hospital psychiatric unit instead of jail. But for the mentally ill in Reno who commit petty crimes, there's no change in sight.
And I don't think that this is something that's going to be solved tomorrow or the next day, as long as we continue to ignore it. And basically, we ignore the mentally ill. It's easier that way.
Betty Rollin, NBC News, Reno, Nevada.